The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hi, everyone, and welcome into the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bill Pucko, and happy to have Jim Johnson, Coach Johnson, back with us on the panel.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Toby Motyka co-hosting for Mike Catalano, who's vacationing in Dayton.
Oh, yeah, vacationing in suburban Dayton. It's beautiful this time of year.
And Pat Duffy, what do you got on for us this week?
St. Patrick's Day this weekend, the most beautiful of all the Amerks Irish St. Patrick's Day
really
jerseys.
Nice.
Come on. And it's got my name on the back of it. So this is a game-worn Pat Duffy Irish Amerks jersey.
And those are going for how much these days on the black market?
They gave it to me, so free. Free jersey.
Jim, you know, this is the NCAA basketball tournament is like iconic, and it's like one of the big events on the sports schedule. And yet, I almost feel like it's taken a back seat to NFL free agency these days. How's that possible?
You know, it's crazy, but, whatever makes the news. And, I think it's interesting this year with the NCAA tournament because I don't think there's any real clear-cut favorite. And so people tend to rally around, someone that when they feel like is a real power, and then, you can get an upset there. And really, this year it's so wide. And then, it is interesting how it's been quiet, and then it comes back, like with the recruiting issues, and then it looked like Sean Miller was really in trouble, and now they're in the tournament. And it looks like some of the teams that were on the alleged bubble didn't make it, and there was some controversy on there. But, I think because the Bills are making some noise right now, that's a story because I'm being a Bills fan for a long time and suffering for a long time. It looks like they're making some good possibility with some moves here.
You know, it's funny. I think the national perception of we'll get into the Bills next, but the national perception of what's going on here is so far skewed to the way I think we generally feel about it.
Right.
It's like, God, they're doing some interesting things, at the very least.
It's different. It certainly is different, and I think Jim makes a good point where in our bubble, it certainly has kind of overlapped the start of the NCAA tournament. To be fair to the NCAA tournament, NFL free agency is just getting started. I mean, all the news is breaking before it technically started, and that's during the NCAA's first four. I think once you start getting into the upsets, and once the NFL free agency kind of cools off after its initial 48-hour period, the tournament will take back over, because that really gets running for 3 weeks, and free agency, the best part of that is before it even starts.
Yeah.
Well, you also have an interesting time in college basketball right now where you have these conferences that aren't power conferences emerging as what might be power conferences. The new Big East has some teams that can play ball. And even in the ACC, which has some of the most traditional big-time powers, Virginia is Virginia is not a traditional NCAA powerhouse. So I think that you have these traditional college basketball fans searching for someone to latch on to, like you brought up before, and these up-and-coming NCAA basketball fans not knowing where to go because, Duke's there, North Carolina's there, you have those teams, but how many guys can you name from those rosters? There's no iconic, other than guys that everybody loves to hate on Duke.
Grayson Allen.
Yeah, that's it. There's no superstar player where you say his name and my mother would know who that is.
You could do a starting five for all the NCAA. I mean, if you've done a bracket, I assume. Have you got a team you like?
I told my wife, because I said that I've bet a little bit with my heart because I'm a big John Beilein fan. I've known him for a long time. So I picked Michigan, but I really like how they're playing right now. I think they've played great basketball the last 2 months. But the interesting thing about that you can't figure it out. There's no formula. I've seen teams that play great at the end of the year go in the tournament, get upset in the first round. I've seen teams that lose early in their conference tournament and turn around and make a run in the NCAA tournament. So it's hard to predict.
I went with the all-villain final. I'm going Duke, Arizona.
Oh,
the all-villain final.
That'll get some ratings.
I had Michigan in my finals. I've got Purdue winning it all. Did you do a thing?
Nova.
I'd like to see that too.
Nova.
Yeah, I won.
Safe. Out of my face.
Very good. All right, we touched on it a little bit, and we're going to get into it more next with the Buffalo Bills. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. This portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Toby, we talk Buffalo Bills. My son Nathan's down in Brooklyn, a big Bills fan. He really liked Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
Just doesn't get it. I can't convince him that what they're doing, to me, looks very proactive.
Most fans do get it. I will say that. All due respect down in Brooklyn, but it was time to move on from Tyrod Taylor. Although the fact that they didn't go out and get kind of a proven commodity as a veteran right off the bat, you watched all these names going, all these guys that you thought they'd be linked to, and they just kept passing by. What it's telling me right now, we knew that the Bills were all in on a quarterback, but it's telling me that they're all in on a very specific one or two quarterbacks that they think are ready to play. Because you can't look a fan base in the eyes and say, guys, we got to sit our guy down for a couple of years. Nate Peterman, Matt Moore, you guys trot out there. You just made the playoffs. And that's something that, in my humble opinion, you just can't do. You got to throw out the rookie, I think, at least.
Or did they just miss?
No, there was a very smart man who sat at this desk for multiple weeks and said that the...
Mike isn't here.
Listen, I've been saying it. I've been saying it for months. They like Nate Peterman too much, and they're not going to carry three quarterbacks because McDermott values versatility in his players. They're going to trot out a rookie quarterback, and Nate Peterman's going to be his backup. And it's not out of the question to think that Nate Peterman will be your opening day starter on week one.
Tough sell.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Sell.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you that it's a tough sell, and I think it's a bad idea. But you've just gotten a third-round pick for Tyrod Taylor. You just moved up from 21 to 12, unloading a tackle which cost you a fortune that had no future for you. It's kind of hard to question any move, especially after the playoff berth and all of the things now with Sammy Watkins in hindsight and all that. It's hard to question any move they're going to make.
Except we have seen Nathan Peterman so far. We have seen him, and it was not good.
I agree with you, but I guess the counter argument to that would be if you're going to get into the top five and pick a quarterback, if that quarterback can't beat Nate Peterman out of training camp, you've got bigger problems.
Right. And I will say, I will trust the draft pick. I'm going to have a hard time trusting Nate Peterman as your starter on opening
Can
day.
Peterman ever distance himself from that game, that start of his career?
Going to be very difficult, and I think the tough part about him is how many more chances will he actually get. I think that'll be the real challenge. And the tough part is, we've all talked about, is the sell to the fan base and the fact that they just made the playoffs. And now if you're going with a rookie quarterback, boy, there's not too many rookie quarterbacks, with few exceptions, that have been successful. Even some of the greats of the game, Peyton Manning, struggled early in their career.
What I think they're looking at is they clearly know, they have to know, even if they go into with Nate Peterman, that their rookie very well could play. And you have guys like Josh Allen, who universally people seem to think he needs a year or maybe two. You have guys like Lamar Jackson. Can it work? I don't know. You do have a few guys that are viewed as a little more pro-ready. Josh Rosen, you got Baker Mayfield. I don't want people to count out Baker Mayfield when it comes to a Sean McDermott type. He had the issue off the field. A lot of the opponents he plays seems to hate him, but his teammates love him, and the guy wants to win, and I think that may translate better than people think. I think people should keep an eye on a Baker Mayfield for the Bills.
But, okay, you look at McDermott and say the rookie quarterback will start. Let's look at his track record of 1 year in Buffalo. They traded out veterans on this team, and almost everyone that they took saw legitimate starting time on the roster. Dawkins, Zay Jones, Tre'Davious White was one of the best corners in football. Matt Milano got his time. We just talked about Nate Peterman. They're not afraid to take the guy that fits their system and throw him in there up front.
That worked. Playing those young guys absolutely worked for the Buffalo Bills, and I do expect them to do it again. I did just think they've talked about wanting to have a veteran quarterback in the room. They talk about valuing a guy like Kyle Williams. I thought they were going to want someone with a little bit of sway in that room, even if it was a guy like Teddy Bridgewater or Josh McCown. The Jets getting both of those guys. That clearly isn't really going to be the case. It looks like it's going to be a rookie's job to lose, I would guess.
Well, I thought there was enough to go around, but the Cardinals and the Jets both got two of them.
$20 million for Sam Bradford was ludicrous. That was absurd.
How much money has that guy made for like 7 wins?
To sit on an operating table.
Where do I get his agent? Get me off of this show and give me Sam Bradford's agent.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. This portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Like it or not, is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Like it or not, Pat, the Cleveland Browns are what they've done over the past week.
What the hell is going on? What is going on? You gave up a third-round pick for a quarterback to a team in Buffalo that has made it apparent they do not want this quarterback. Not only did you give them a third-round pick, you're paying the bonus that you could have made the Bills pay if you would have done this deal later, and you're not making the Bills keep any salary. Then they make a trade for a possession receiver who's being paid the average of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. Jarvis Landry. The guy has yards after catches, but the guy, he's overrated. How many times have we seen him?
King of 2nd and 12, 6-yard
Yeah,
catch.
way to go. Great. I mean, listen, if Jarvis Landry mattered, the Dolphins would have done something to lock him down. And then you have all of this cap space available. You could have went out and signed legit 3 monster free agents. And instead, you took the salary to pay a possession receiver and $16 million to a quarterback who, if all things work out, will not see the field for the year that you have him under contract.
They're going to keep those draft picks?
Most of them. You have to. At a certain point, you have to. We talk all the time about teams passing on quarterbacks. People still get mad that the Bills passed on Russell Wilson, even though everyone passed on Russell Wilson. The Browns traded directly out of the spot that was used to take Carson Wentz, and then traded directly out of the spot that was used to take Deshaun Watson. They have had too many chances to draft a guy and watch the team that traded for that pick turn him into what looks like a franchise quarterback. They aren't doing that again. They're taking a quarterback at first overall.
Jimmy, like it or not, it becomes a hot-button issue in this town, especially the private versus the public schools. You like it or not, we've got Kearney, McQuaid, and North Star in the state Final Four, basketball, girls and boys, with the chance that, they're going to be regular appearances there. Is this a good or a bad thing, or does it matter?
Well, being as a Monroe County coach for a long time, it was always a struggle. I think they have changed it where it's a little bit better in the fact that, because I think it was most disappointing to me is when I witnessed when a player played for a county school or a city school as like a sophomore and then all of a sudden went to a private school. That I really struggled with. But as far as like if a student is in Catholic or private school throughout their whole career, I'm okay with that. But when they are actually recruiting kids that were on your roster the year before, I still really struggle with that.
Actually,
part.
2 went the other way. I mean, give Jack Leisure credit. He lost 2 of his best players to county schools and then won.
Yeah, absolutely. Which the scary thing is, and I like Jack, and I think he did a good job, but how much talent they had on their roster to be able to lose that kind of players.
Toby, like it or not, the J.R. Smith got informed that he wasn't playing by text.
I don't like it, even though it is J.R. Smith. People tend to take a little bit of satisfaction when things go wrong for J.R., but look, he's reformed at least a little bit from his early days. And come on, like, you want to talk about problems with a team and problems with an organization and maybe a structure. That Cavs team, once LeBron leaves, because let's be real, he is leaving, is going to go right back where it was before he came back. If this is the way that they run their operation, you can't text a player and be like, hey, just FYI, TTYL, talk to you later, see you tomorrow, bud. You can't do that. And JR said, can we have a little more discourse over these things on the bench.
Of course.
You know your team's a disaster when J.R. Smith is
the
asking
voice
for
of
more
reason.
discourse, right?
He's the meditator.
He's got no shirt on. He's throwing soup at people. And he's asking for discourse.
Well, so let me ask you, what is worse, that or firing your Secretary of State by a tweet?
Well, I'm going to, just because of the largeness of the second one, I'm going to go with that. But I don't know. I mean, I would consider J.R. Smith the Secretary of State of the NBA based on the years that he's worked and how much everybody loves him. No?
Diplomacy?
Yeah.
Very good. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next.
Here is the MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
Dunkin' iced coffees are $2 from 2 to 6 p.m. That's right, all sizes, all freshly brewed, all with that signature smooth Dunkin' taste. Power up with a Dunkin' iced coffee for $2. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Time for Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Pat.
When you witness the Minnesota Vikings give Kirk Cousins a fully guaranteed 3-year, $86 million, you saw the first move in a work stoppage for the NFL in 2021. That's when this collective bargaining agreement is up. And you can sure as heck guarantee, with all of the talk in the last couple of years about how NFL players want guaranteed contracts, now that Kirk Cousins got one, everybody wants one. And everybody's agent, everyone's going to go to their agent and say, where is my guaranteed contract? And that's going to float its way up to the top of the players' union. The guys who run the players' union have already told the players within the last 12 months, save your money to get ready for work stoppage. Kirk Cousins just expedited that process a ton by signing that guaranteed money. And it's interesting how the Minnesota Vikings always have a way of affecting NFL history when it comes to off-the-field stuff. Not only do we have this stuff with Kirk Cousins, but do you remember a couple of years ago when they traded for Herschel Walker? And they traded all of these players that would become picks if the Cowboys cut them. Those deals don't happen anymore. You know why? Because the Vikings ruined it for everybody being stupid, just like they did with Kirk Cousins. So what are we going to do in 2021? You want to watch a little more basketball? Hang out?
I'll throw it back to you. Have you got an end game in this? I mean, if this actually go to war over this issue, how's it end?
The billionaires have enough money for 3 generations. The players have enough money till next year. How do you think it ends?
Jimmy.
Well, being a former coach, and I'm going to appeal, I do a lot of speaking now, and one of my favorite quotes is, attitudes are contagious as years worth catching. And I want to change the mindset. I know in the NFL, in all pro sports, and in Division I level, the coaches are paid a handsomely sum. But for high school coaches, middle school coaches, and volunteer coaches at youth leagues, they get paid very little or not at all. And so what I want to change a mindset of young people and their parents of having an attitude of gratitude, of really sharing their gratefulness to the people in their life that make such a profound effect with not only teaching them a sport, but also teaching them life lessons. So remember to thank those coaches and show appreciation for them.
I hesitate to throw this out. What if you get a bad coach? What if your kid is playing for a bad coach? However you want to define that. What do you do?
Well, I think that happens like in every facet of life. There are bad leaders in all different types, but I find that most people at the youth level and high school and middle school are in it for the right reasons. And certainly we've all had coaches that we didn't think were very strong, but you know, if they're volunteering their time, I think it's still important to be grateful for them.
Very good.
All right, let's expand a little bit on what we talked about earlier with the Buffalo Bills in the NFL draft. It is obvious at this point that they are going to draft a quarterback. We don't know exactly who, we don't know exactly how yet. And when it comes to this scenario, one of the things that has made this draft so fun is that everyone likes different players for different reasons and hates different players for different reasons. There is no clear-cut number 1, all the way down to there being no clear-cut number 5. What I will say is this with the Buffalo Bills. You're going to hear a lot of them being linked to player A, player B, player C, player D, player E over the next couple of months. And they're probably going to draft a guy who 70% of you wish it wasn't the guy that they were drafting. I'm going to say when it comes to this, trust the process because it hasn't let you down. But if that process involves starting Nate Peterman on a playoff-bound team or a potentially playoff-bound team, I'm going to bail on everything I just said. But I'm going to trust the Bills on this draft pick, give it time to play out. Because when they traded out of that spot and took Trey White, people groaned a little bit. Looks pretty good right now.
Well, it's nice to know that there are limits to within trust the process.
Yeah, I don't want to trust a guy who I haven't seen anything from that was a 5th-round pick with this kind of roster.
All righty, and it's going to be an exciting week. We know that. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. Jimmy, thanks for coming in again.
My pleasure.
We will see you again. Toby, nice job. Pat?
As usual.
You look great in green, by the way. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for the Rochester Press Box.